Now, we have got so much to be looking forward to, not least when we're looking onwards to 2025. Jacob, I know it's a bit emotional to bid farewell to Blast Premier. It's been a staple of our calendar for so many years now, but we've got so much excitement coming next year. I think it's only right that we take a look at the schedule because we've got 2 seasons with 3 standalone events in each, Jacob.
Yeah, we're changing it up a little bit, you know, from a time where, as you said, back all the way into the COVID days, we're starting out with group stage events connected to each other. This time around for next year with the Blast Circuit, it's going to be standalone events where we can crown a champion on each and every one of those events. Yeah, we can see here the season. This is going to be the first season of 2025, where in the Open, we're going to go back to Lisbon. That was banging the times that we went down there in Premier. I'm looking forward to that one. The crowd in Lisbon was absolutely outstanding. I mean, even when it wasn't sold out, even when there was a few seats left, the arena was at an all-time high. So yes, very excited to be back in Lisbon. And when we flip over to season 2, no bias for me here, but we are returning to London. That's going to be super exciting. That does make you happy, doesn't it? Let's hope that Messi is still around for Vitality to come by. Otherwise, we'll have you as the only London representative. Yeah, well, we have great food there, despite what everybody says. You need to actually come and try it. But before we dive into the Open, I think it's only right that we get a bit more info on the bounty.
I'm looking forward to the new Blast Bounty tournaments. Looks interesting.
I think fans are looking a lot forward to it.
I think the overall concept and idea is going to be cool and it's new.
It will be better as well for Tier 2 and Tier 3 teams.
The intriguing part is that you do pick who you play.
I'd rather go for high reward.
I'm taking a risk picking a strong team. Sometimes you need to go big or go home.
I would always go for a higher reward.
I will take the risk for sure.
And for some team that's going to be very good and some teams that's going to be pretty bad.
I think there will be different storylines to follow throughout the year with which teams that may view the opponents as weaker or stronger.
Getting the chance to try and beat the best teams is always a nice opportunity.
I think we're gonna play lesser skilled teams since they want to get the biggest bounty. So if we have the biggest bounty, maybe they want to challenge us.
I feel myself very comfortable against less-known teams.
You cannot underestimate anyone nowadays. There is not so much difference, shooting-wise at least.
Some lesser-known teams are definitely teaching you.
With the bounty, you have to kind of just like adapt on the fly who you're meeting in next stage and stuff like that.
But I'm still trying my best, and we know as a team that we can beat anyone, so come and get us.
Oh, I love that confidence coming out of Alexi V. Come and get us. And this is where the bounty gets so exciting, Jacob. This is a brand new format coming into the new season of 2025.
I almost wish I could take credit for that. Whoever came up with that idea is a genius, because you're right, it's a complete new format with so many diverting different storylines that can be attached to it. Obviously, the format is quite simple, so to speak. You have 1 to 28. You have 28 teams being invited from the global Valve leaderboard, and you will have 4 wildcard teams being invited into the tournament as well. And the reasoning behind that is that we want to make sure that we can have some of the best teams in the world obviously attending this. So let's say that you're making roster changes. Let's say you're building a new team and you won't be featured on the Valve leaderboard to begin with. Blast have the opportunity to still invite those teams into the tournament, so you make sure it's stacked with the best teams in the world.
Okay, very interesting indeed. But I believe Twistzz actually has a question for us.
The question I would have for the Blast talents, how does the pick and ban work and who chooses who to play?
Very good question, Twistzz. First of all, pick and ban, I'm presuming he's referring to the map veto there. It's going to be the same. It's all going to be best of 3s throughout, so gone are the days of best of 1s. What about the second part to his question, when we're talking about the seeding and how teams pick to play each other?
That's when it gets very, very interesting, because you have all these invited teams from the Valve Global Leaderboard, and then you have 4 teams who are being invited as well. Those will all be seeded into different categories, and then you will divide those teams into different pools of talent as well. You have pot number 1, pot number 2, pot number 3, and pot number 4, and there will be a different bounty attached to each of this team. Now, if you're ranked number 17, which is this an example right now, as it stands right now, would be Astralis. You get to be the team that choose your opponent first. And the thought process here is that, as some of the players were alluding to in the video, do you want to go for a team like Na'Vi or G2 or Spirit in order to try to take away their bounty, win a lot of money, and overtake their seed? Or do you want to start out the tournament a little bit slow, maybe take someone from pot number 3 or pot number 4 to make sure that your chances of winning that game and staying alive in the tournament is very much alive. Now, the thing is, it's single elimination best of 3. So if you're taking the big risk of going against Na'Vi, G2, Spirit for that matter, you also risk being out of the tournament after the first game. So there's a lot of thought process going into this for all these teams.
Yeah, this is pretty savage. I think we can look at this example. Again, this is just if we were to be, seeding this right now as it stands in 2024. Obviously, I expect this to change quite a lot coming out of the major and into 2025. Let's move on, though, to another example, because as you said, single elimination. So after the first round of games, half of the team's gone, and then some prize money is going to be shifting around, right?
And we repeat the process. Exactly. You take down some of the teams. Again, this is just a thought experiment. It's just an example. But again, in this scenario, Astralis would be seeded number 9. They again would then get to choose an opponent from some of the other pools. And let's say that Astralis is taking Na'Vi. They beat them. They steal the bounty. They take all their money. Half of that money they put into the bank. That's guaranteed prize money going the way of Astralis. Half of the money is now the bounty on Astralis. So there's going to be a lot of different scenarios playing out. There's going to be a lot of thought process for these different teams, as in, do you want to take on the big dogs or do you want to take the smaller ones who have less of a bounty on the head?
I'm so excited to see the storylines that are going to be playing out. And then we move on to the next stage of the tournament when we have the top 8 teams remaining. And this is going to be on LAN, right?
That's when we move into a LAN environment. Yes, the first couple of rounds is being played out online, so that's obviously going to add an extra layer of pressure to some of these teams. Moving into the LAN section, that's when we get to see the teams head-to-head. We'll even have a little bit of a draft show, pre-show coming in, where teams will pick their opponents and they'll be looking them in the eyes and say, we choose you for tomorrow's game. So it's going to be super, super fun to follow.
I really hope Na'Vi and Alexibi are going to be backing up the words that we heard there. And of course, the last stage will be the top 4 teams that will be remaining. I'm just so excited to see how this is going to be playing out, particularly with some of those underdogs having the opportunity to either, take down the big guys right off the bat, or maybe try and take an easier route, but might not be so easy.
And that's the big change, dare I say it, right? Some of the critique that's been of the Blast format sometimes have been there's a lot of filler games, a lot of group stage games. We don't necessarily crown a champion, but in this format, at the bounty, best of 3 single elimination, which means that every single game you're going to watch, someone will be knocked out of the tournament. So there's pressure on from the get-go.
Next event of the season is going to be the Open. Now, explain this one to me, Jacob.
Well, it's quite simple. We're moving back to a little bit of a normal tournament. Number 1 to 12 teams will be invited from the Valve Global Rankings once more, and then we have the Blast Rising tournaments as well, which will serve as their very own Tier 1 tournament, but also as a qualifier for the Open. So one team coming in as the winner from the Asian region, the European region, the North American region, and the South American region. So again, we have 12 of the best teams in the world, but we also have an opportunity for someone out there to create a new team, go through the Blast Rising, and secure a spot at the Open.
Okay, that's very interesting. So that's going to keep the circuit, reasonably open, right? We obviously have those invites coming in, but it's going to give teams opportunities from all around the globe to be competing against the big guys.
Exactly, and as I said, one team from Europe gets into the tournament, one team from Asia, right? You got to be the best of the best that is not within that top 12 ranking on the Valve ranking in order to have a chance of getting in there. Now, the format, quite simple. 2 groups of 8 would be playing double elimination, best of 3 as we know it, a playoff as well. So it's a more normalized tournament as we know it.
Yeah, 1 week is going to be in the studio. Then, of course, we're going to be moving on to those LAN locations. As alluded to, Lisbon will be the first one. Now, let's get to the 3rd and final event of each season. That is going to be the Rivals.
Creme de la creme. This is where you get to see the absolute best teams duke it out in a smaller circuit tournament. Number 1 to 4, obviously from the invited Valve Global Ranking Leaderboard, and then you have an invite coming in from Europe, NA, South America, and Asia as well, which means that Blast, as an example, depending on where they place the tournament, have an opportunity to invite a European team who maybe just fell out of the leaderboard, or invite a local team into a certain place where we are in the world. So it's going to make sure that some of the best teams in the world will duke it out for the Rivals. And as you can see by the format, as we know it, 2 groups playing best of 3s, double elimination, and the final will be a best of 5 banger as well. So more like we know it with only quality teams.
Tell me your thoughts on this new format coming into next year.
Allow me to be completely honest. I think it's been quite still the past couple of years. The tournament formats are looking like the same. I absolutely love the new innovative stuff coming out of Blast. I also think the way ESL is doing it, PGL is doing it, it makes for a circuit that is very different all over the place. So the fact that we get to combine all these world-class teams playing different tournaments throughout the year with some innovative stuff like the bounty, I absolutely adore it.
I'm so excited to be diving into what is going to be an amazing 2025.